the voice was robotic, and so there was hesitancy and sort of a mistrust in hearing your voice that's not your own, sort of alienated from your body, which is all the better for music.
Probably the first time I heard a vocoder was, I don't know, 77 maybe, something like that. And probably in a keyboard store. I didn't hear it on a record. I just was always poking around in music stores, and it was appealing to me as a way to process the voice, which does sound a little bit authoritarian, robotic, you know, kind of corporate, institutional, very good for sort of slogans. And I used it in a song where there were a lot of things like the U.S. Postal System slogan.
And the voice said, neither snow nor rain, nor blue light shall stay these couriers from swift completion of their appointed round.
I only found out after I'd used it for a while what the military history was of the instrument. And its origin in code is something that I love about it. And it is able then to tweak language, corporate language, in ways that make you, that can be a little bit chilling.
This time we have the vocoder set so that the speech is entirely remade out of the hiss-type energy. Sister Susie sells seashells down by the seashore. Sister Susie sells seashells down by the seashore.
A vocoder is basically a device that takes in human speech and it actually disassembles the speech signal and turns it into a series of digital signals. The point of the vocoder is that it can create fewer bits in the signal. It's a slower speed signal that you can then transmit better over long distances.
Homer W. was a physicist who worked at Bell Labs and is credited as the inventor of the vocoder. He wanted to transmit human speech underwater through the transatlantic cable. You could basically save bandwidth and save copper costs by compressing phone conversations, and the vocoder could break the voice down and transmit only the necessary intelligence of human speech, the necessary frequencies. The transatlantic cable idea was not successful because it was still expensive to develop these models of vocoders at that time, but also the quality of speech was garbled. Bell Labs did a cover version of an old Irish folk song called Love's Old Sweet Song, just a song at twilight. And it's this forlorn ballad for the vocoder. This was not a pop hit. I don't think it was ever released, but they realized music potential. But the vocoder really took a hold in the late 1970s. And in particular with DJs like Africa Bambaataa and Jazzy J. And Bambaataa was definitely a vocoder ambassador. I mean, you had kids in an apocalyptic landscape looking towards the future, you know, playing these parties in the Bronx and playing Kraftwerk records.
You're charging our battery, and now we're full of energy. We are the robots. We are the robots.
No, for Kraftwerk. I know I was well aware of the vocoder before they came along. My name is Ben Cenac, professionally known as Cosmo D, from the group Nucleus and from the DJ crew Jam On Productions. I got into futuristic stuff in the 70s. I was always a sci-fi nut, you know, from Star Trek, comic books, and all of that. And I got into synthesized music more as a necessity because it was what I could afford. So I used to do parties. We call it Cosmo D with his beatbox, bass box, voice box, and space box. You know, trying to show that up.
Let's go to work. We got what'll make your body jerk. We can throw your hands up in the air, shake your booty and scream, oh yeah, 'cause we...
Computer age is about us giving power and turning things over to the computers, losing our humanity to computers, and something that's happening right now. But, you know, and, you know, that's why I made sure it was the vocoder. So you don't know whether it's the human asking the question or the computer asking the question. But the question is, are we under their control or are they under our control or what? Because the music, everything feels like a dream, but it's science that brought it there. It would be nice if we could get more technology created out of things, you know, inspired for peaceful reasons and positive reasons. But some of the dopest shit we have came out of military technology, so.
In all the history of war, never has signal communications or the Signal Corps played as vital a part as it does today in every part of the world.
The U.S. military, the Signal Corps, are looking for a secure voice system, a way to discourage eavesdroppers, because Churchill and FDR's conversations were basically being compromised, and so they're looking for some device or some sort of technology that could create indestructible speech, impregnable to code breakers. And Bell Labs called it Project X. The U.S. Signal Corps referred to it as Sig Sally. There are 12 terminals strategically developed throughout the course of the Second World War and created this massive phone scrambling system. At the NSA Museum in Fort Meade, there is a Sig Sally replica that gives you an idea of the size. Like one vocoder terminal was roughly 2,500 square feet, and it was the heart of the Sig Sally system. They would sample these signals, and then it'd be transmitted over radio telephone. And then the vocoder's synthesizer dimension, the synthesizer component, would take this information and reconstruct it into human speech. But that wasn't enough to just have a vocoder to break the voice down. They needed a randomized code key to lock in the code, and they used turntables. So these records would play thermal noise, and that noise would be subtracted at the receiving end, and leaving you with a metallic accent.
This is the KO6. This signal is close to Sig Sally in performance.
The SA-060 equipment operating over the radio circuit from San Francisco to Washington, D.C.
As the war progressed, and it's used during the invasion of Germany, firebombing of Tokyo, and the planning of the bombing of Hiroshima. So the vocoder is witness to some of the most important and some of the most tragic moments in history, in particular with the Second World War.
I graduated from college in 1965, and I got to work on secure voice. And we were developing a secure voice system for the Navy. And in the end, you could be out in the Gulf of Tonkin on a ship, and they could eventually relay that back to the Pentagon, and they could talk to each other. The vocoder was a key element because that's what digitized the voice to then go in and get encrypted so that it was secure. And they went into a development of a system called a linear predictive coder. It worked on a mathematical algorithm, and it would essentially predict what the speech waveform was going to do next. And the cell phone you have probably has a linear predictive encoder system in it. You hold it in your hand here, you got that whole thing now put into a simple handheld device.
Homer Dudley's original vision of compression is a part of our daily lives. We speak in these, through cell phone technology, as these imperfect replicas of ourselves, and that brings the past right into the future. Here you had a device that was invented to improve telecommunications universally, and then is repurposed only to be used by a very restricted few, like generals and heads of state and the military, and then repurposed again by musicians. Latino, African-American kids in the Bronx and in New York were relating to it in a totally different way. Because it's kind of an outsider thing in a lot of ways, like these weirdos drawn to the idea of inhabiting a different character, a different voice. And the vocoder is often referred to as post-human, but I mean, what's more human than wanting to be something else? And the vocoder was that something else.
Good work, Jam On. Another world is safe for freedom, justice, and the galactic funk. Time to ride off into the universe, partners.